Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. I'm your host, Phil Black. And if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader with big aspirations, like the Ivy League, or military service academies like West Point, ROTC, or athletic scholarships, boom, you've come to the right place. My specialty, my superpower, if you will, is preparing families for these competitive programs. I'll teach you what your child should do, when they should do it, and how you can help. So stick around and prepare to out-prepare. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the PrepWell podcast. In today's episode, I want to walk through a recent conversation I had with a PrepWeller, a female PrepWeller, that I think will resonate with a lot of students and parents out there. My job during this mentoring session, which was over the phone, by the way, was to, number one, help her brainstorm common application essay ideas, and two, to help her think about how to position herself in her upcoming college applications. And by the end of the episode, you will see how far we got with both of those goals. And for privacy reasons, I'm going to refer to the student as KIna. KIna is a rising senior who attends a public high school with about 4,000 students, pretty big high school. She's pretty strong academically. She's got a mix of A's and B's, so not a perfect 4.8 GPA. She's taken fairly rigorous courses, but not the most rigorous, and she has not yet taken an SAT or an ACT. Her main extracurricular activity has been Robotics Club, which she's done for many years. She also has an older brother in college who's a mechanical engineering major. She doesn't know exactly where she's going to apply yet, but she does know that she wants to be a computer science major. So that's where we are in terms of background. The part of the conversation that I think will be most revealing is the part that's centered around KIna's assumption that she wants to be a computer science major. I was a bit skeptical at first, and we'll see why in a few minutes, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. For starters, who doesn't want to be a computer science major these days? Am I right? The answer is a lot of students. Computer science and environmental engineering seem to be the trendy majors these days. And that's why I was eager to dig into KIna's rationale for wanting to pursue computer science. Did she really know what she was getting into, or was she following the herd? So I asked her straight up, right out of the gate, why she thought she wanted to be a computer science major. And she gave me a relatively generic answer. Something along the lines of, I really enjoy coding, I like technology and what it can do for society. There's a big need for computer scientists because of how much our lives are driven by computers. It was, if I'm being honest, a fluff answer. It was a response that made it seem like she wasn't really sure what she was getting herself into and was just trotting out some cliches about the importance of computers and technology in society. And that's pretty standard fare these days. I had a hunch, however, that maybe there were some outside forces that were steering her in that direction. I don't know that for sure, but it could have been her parents, her brother, her peer group, her high school guidance counselor, her robotics team. I'll never know. She'll probably never know. But my instincts told me that unless I was missing something, that I wasn't sure about how durable this major preference really was. And the only way to find out was to ask questions. And since her primary extracurricular activity was Robotics Club, I thought that was a good place to start. I asked her about the club, when she started, what she liked about it, what role did she play, and the like. And I got an interesting response. She said that, number one, she was the only female in the club, which she said was challenging, and two, that her primary responsibility was for the club's outreach effort. I wasn't really sure what that meant, so she explained to me that a robotics team's overall score in the competitions was evenly split between how the robot performed in the different tasks and the outreach effort, which was apparently how the team connected with outside organizations for fundraising and sponsorships and support. and that her outreach efforts were what helped her gain respect from the boys in the club, mostly because they were glad that they didn't have to do it. They wanted to focus on the robot. I then probed a little more and asked about some of these other roles. And she explained that there was a hardware lead and a software lead and an integration person and a design person. She said that she didn't have a lot of experience in those areas and wasn't particularly good at them, and so she gravitated toward the outreach role. I didn't get the sense that she thought it was a slight per se. She just didn't really have a lot of experience or skill in those other areas and really never got to the point where she could be an impact person in those different specialties. And mind you, this is an activity she's been doing for 5 or 6 years. This wasn't something that she was starting from scratch for the first time in high school and everybody else had a leg up on her. This had been her thing. So this was curious to me. Why hadn't she made more progress in these different areas? At least enough to compete for some of the more technical roles. Was she being sidelined by the overeager boys? Or was she in fact shying away from the more technical or computer science-y type roles? I wanted to find out, so I asked. Was she interested in the inner workings of the robot? The programming, the software, the electronics, the circuit boards, the integration? And she said, not really. I asked if she was a tinkerer by nature, someone who liked to take things apart and put them back together and see how they worked. Or did she prefer to sit in a cubicle with her noise-canceling headphones on and write code for hours and hours on end? She said that neither of those two activities were particularly interesting to her. At this point, I started asking more wide-ranging questions to try to get a better picture of KIna's likes and dislikes outside of the Robotics Club. And lo and behold, I found out a bunch of new things about her. She told me that she's been working on a passion project that she was super excited about. It was a web design class where she was learning all about CSS and web design and layout, and she loved it. She would spend hours making sure that certain parts of the website looked just right, and that certain buttons and links were in just the right spots to be intuitive to a user. She spent countless hours tweaking the smallest details of the website to her liking, even details like color and kerning and shadows. She enjoyed thinking about user interface and user experience issues while building out her websites. After hearing this, I asked her if she had any other design or art background. She said yes, she loved art and design and aesthetics, and she loved being creative. She was obsessed with Post-it notes and process and organization and graphic arts. She was a Minecraft junkie as a kid and loved how she could design her own buildings and decorate them as she wished. She was fond of Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. She claimed that one of her superpowers was observation. She was very visually engaged in every project she worked on. Okay, now I felt like we were really getting somewhere. I was getting a much better picture of who KIna was and what she was all about. And I had a pretty good idea of where we were moving toward, but I wanted to test out one more activity. I asked KIna to listen very closely to the list of classes I was about to read off and to take note of the ones that she'd really like to take in college. And here was the list that I read to her. Algorithms, artificial intelligence, calculus, computer architecture, computer science theory, computer theory, data logic, data management, device utilization, electronic design, files and databases, information management, machine language, network fundamentals, operating systems, program languages, and statistics. When I was done with the list, I asked KIna which classes she would be really psyched to take in college. And she said, well, none of them really. Okay, got it. None. We'll move on. I then said, now let's try the same thing, and I'm going to read a different list of courses. and take note of the ones that you'd really be excited to take in college. Are you ready? She said yes. So I started out. Drawing, photography, design techniques, art theory, visual communication theory, illustration, digital design, Adobe Illustrator, digital imagery, visual communication, layout and composition, idea generation and research, typography, print design, and web design. She said very excitedly, well, I take every one of those courses. They all sound awesome. Where do I sign up? And I said, well, if you like those courses, you're going to love college because all of those classes will be available to you, and you're going to enjoy each and every one of them. The only rub is that none of them are part of a computer science major. They are all requirements for a computer graphics design major. That first list of 17 courses that I read to you, they were all classes that you'd be taking as a computer science major, and you didn't like the sound of any of them, not even one. The second set of 15 classes that I read were the classes you would take as a computer graphics design major, and you liked everyone. Congratulations, KIna. I think we found you a college major. Now, needless to say, KIna was very excited, but also a bit disillusioned. She had been under the impression for years that she was going to be a computer science major, or that she should be a computer science major. Probably for a whole host of reasons, some conscious and maybe some subconscious. She was told that computer science is the wave of the future, that computer science is where all of the jobs and money are, that computer science is a hard skill, and that a female interested in computer science was a force to be reckoned with. And it probably didn't hurt that her dad was a computer scientist as well. The problem is, that assumption had never been challenged by anyone. It was a given. After all, she was the only female in an otherwise male robotics club, which seemed to point her in the direction of computer science, right? Her dad had taught her computer languages growing up, and she did enjoy them. She liked computers. She liked Minecraft. That sounded computer science-y. But a more careful and thoughtful examination of what really made KIna tick brought to the surface something quite different. And she will have to grapple with this tension. She'd been living under the assumption for years that she was a computer science girl, and now her identity is being challenged. Now, by this time, our hour-long session was up, and we had not even broached the topic of her college essay, and she didn't care one bit, because she was so excited about the prospect of having a new identity, one that resonated much more fully with her, that the college essay was more of an afterthought. We could tackle that next week. Right now, she was eager to begin exploring what computer graphics designers actually do in the real world. She felt like she had been on this path unknowingly for years, and now that we had identified what that path is, she was super hyped. So we scheduled another session next week to brainstorm about her essay, and we finished our call. Now, as a college admissions advisor, my job with KIna just got a whole lot easier, because now her application will flow. It will have a theme. It will have substance and coherence. It will tie together. It won't be a struggle to manufacture interest in the very generic, albeit super popular, major called computer science. And by the way, the popularity of computer science has made competition to get into such programs very heated. It's one of the most competitive majors right now. And if you're trying to compete on your heels with a wishy-washy pitch about why you want to go into computer science, you may want to reconsider. Because if your application is not well aligned and tight and thought out, and you're not bringing a lot of evidence to support your passion for computer science, you won't be competitive at the more selective schools. And that's just part of the story. That's the admissions side of the story. But then there's also the reality of what you do when you get to college. In other words, even if you happen to sneak into a college as a computer science major, even though it's not really your thing, and you start to take computer science courses that you're not really into, you will likely not get very far and not have a great experience. And of course, that's not where you want to be. Now, it does happen a lot where students change their mind in college midstream, but it's certainly not ideal. The moral of the story here is to try not to blindly latch on to a college major without doing your due diligence, without doing a careful examination of why you're latching on, especially if you're doing it because it's popular, or your parents want you to do it, or you've heard you'll make a lot of money, or you'll be guaranteed a job, or that you'll be the master of the universe. Pause and consider why. And don't fall in love with a major without researching what you would actually do in college, what courses you would take, what books you would read, what kind of work you would do. Are you writing essays? Are you reading long books? Are you doing problem sets? Are you going to multi-hour labs? Are you conducting research? All of this information is available, and it's very important. And if you can't figure it out on your own, ask your parents, ask a trusted friend, set up a session with me. Because once you find that right fit, the application, the essays, the interviews, the college choices, they will all become that much easier. And if you want my help sorting through this type of stuff, please reach out to me and we'll set up a mentoring session. This is one of my favorite things to do with all of my PrepWellers. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the continued support. Of course, if you know a parent with an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, or even senior that might find this helpful, please share the episode with them. You can do that by finding the small box with the tiny arrow pointing up. That's the share button. Click that button, text your friends the link to this episode with a little personal note from you recommending that they give it a listen. Of course, if you have questions, comments, or an idea for an upcoming episode, please don't hesitate to reach out to me by email, DM me on Instagram, check out our blog, Facebook page, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. Until next week, goodbye, good luck, and never stop preparing. This podcast is brought to you by PrepWell Academy. PrepWell Academy is my one-of-a-kind online mentoring program that delivers to your 9th or 10th grader a short, highly relevant video from me every week, every Sunday in fact, where I give them a heads up about what they should be thinking about to stay ahead of the game. To get these valuable lessons into your child's hands, please head over to PrepWellAcademy.com and enroll your child today.